Howdy, folks. It's your friend Max Mogren reporting live for you from beautiful Alpine, Wyoming. This is Wake Up Wyoming for August 30th, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got a big show today. Sorry if it seems like I forgot about y'all. I didn't. I was up at Jackson Lake Lodge for a couple days trying to get an interview with Janet Yellen. That didn't happen. All my technology went on the fritz up there. Couldn't post anything. Couldn't do much of anything. So I've got some footage of that, but really didn't find out too much up at the Fed meeting beyond the fact that these banksters are extremely boring individuals, and they have a lot of security guards. Then I was up in the mountains for a couple days doing the Grand Traverse, where you climb a bunch of mountains. It's great to get in touch with nature. At the same time, nature was getting in touch with humanity. I was on top of Mount Owen when I checked my phone, saw an anti-media post about Harvey making landfall. Obviously, Harvey, the big news. These hurricanes, it is not natural for a hurricane to sit and hover in one spot for 5 days straight, dumping 50 inches of rain, okay? There's a lot of evidence out there that this storm was geoengineered. Brian Peterson, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Nancy Giverson, hello. Good afternoon to you. Thomas Fulco, good morning to you, sir. Thank you all for tuning in. It's Wake Up Wyoming. I got yesterday's New York Times here with me. They're covering Harvey hardcore. Obviously, a lot of talk about Harvey, a lot of talk about the cleanup, the recovery, and of course, they're going to blame climate change for the hurricane. Now, humans are changing the climate. We're doing it in a lot of ways, not just CO2, not just methane. The most powerful greenhouse gas is water vapor. Any human activities that change water vapor's behavior in the atmosphere is going to change the weather and the climate. Athenia Hughes asking what's causing them. Well, I would argue that the disaster capitalist military-industrial complex is causing hurricanes like Harvey to have the damage they do. Remember Project Storm Fury. Look it up on Wikipedia. Back in the 60s, 70s, into the 80s, the U.S. military was already practicing steering hurricanes, moving storms. The U.S. military using the weather as a weapon during the Vietnam War. It's called Operation Popeye. Look that one up. So these technologies have been around for a long time, more than 50 years since they've been weaponized. And it's important to note that the technology exists to prevent a storm like Harvey. The technology exists to steer that thing out to sea or to help dissipate it more quickly so it doesn't drop 50 inches of rain on Houston. Our hearts go out to all the people down in Texas, Louisiana who've been affected by this. But the technology that could decrease the strength of these storms, that could decrease the severity, the impact, the economic, human health, the environmental degradation, can also be used to increase them. And today we're looking at The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein, written, I believe, in 2009. And she covers Katrina quite a bit in this. The similarities between, 2007, the similarities between Katrina and Harvey are shocking. So I'm going to read you a couple short excerpts from The Shock Doctrine. This book basically talking about shock, whether it's the shock of a financial crash, whether it's the shock of a war, the shock of a natural disaster, or, for that matter, a man-made disaster, because we do live in the era of geoengineering, of weather modification. It's been going on for a long time. Just because the mainstream media doesn't talk about it doesn't mean it's not real, right? Let's get into it. This kind of humanizes it too. This is the intro. I met Jamar Perry in September 2005 at the big Red Cross shelter in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Dinner was being doled out by grinning young Scientologists, and he was standing in line. I had just been busted for talking to evacuees without a media escort and was now doing my best to blend in, a white Canadian in a sea of African-American Southerners. I dodged into the food line behind Perry and asked him to talk to me as if we were old friends, which he kindly did. Born and raised in New Orleans, he'd been out of the flooded city for a week. He looked about 17, but told me he was 23. He and his family had waited forever for the evacuation buses. When they didn't arrive, they had walked out into the baking sun. Finally, they ended up here, a sprawling convention center, normally home to pharmaceutical trade shows and capital city carnage, the ultimate in steel cage fighting. Now it was jammed with 2,000 cots and a mess of angry, exhausted people being patrolled by edgy National Guard soldiers just back from Iraq. The news that racing around the shelter that day was that Richard Baker, a prominent Republican congressman from the city of New Orleans, had told a group of lobbyists, "We finally cleaned up public housing in New Orleans. We couldn't do it, but God did." Joseph Canizaro, one of New Orleans' wealthiest developers, had just expressed a similar sentiment. "I think we have a clean sheet to start again. And with that clean sheet, we have some very big opportunities." All that week, the Louisiana State Legislature in Baton Rouge had been crawling with corporate lobbyists, helping to lock in those big opportunities. Lower taxes, fewer regulations, cheaper workers, and a smaller, safer city, which in practice meant plans to level the public housing projects and replace them with condos. Hearing all the talk of fresh starts and clean sheets, you could almost forget the toxic stew of rubble, chemical outflows, and human remains just a few miles down the highway. Over at the shelter, Jamar could think of nothing else. "I really don't see it as cleaning up the city. What I see is that a lot of people got killed uptown, people who shouldn't have died." He was speaking quietly, but an older man in line in front of us overheard and whipped around. "What is wrong with these people in Baton Rouge? This isn't an opportunity. It's a goddamn tragedy. Are they blind?" A mother with 2 kids chimed in. "No, they're not blind. They're evil. They see just fine." So that's the intro to the shock doctrine. What's she talking about there? Well, within weeks of Katrina, now again, we're talking about Harvey, but Katrina is a huge parallel to this. We're going to see the same sort of situation unfold in Houston as we did in New Orleans in the wake of Katrina. Within weeks, the Gulf Coast became a domestic laboratory for the same kind of government run by contractors that had been pioneered in Iraq. The companies that snatched up the biggest contracts were the familiar Baghdad gang. Halliburton's KBR unit had a $60 million gig to reconstruct military bases along the coast. Blackwater, now they're called something else, they always change their name, was hired to protect FEMA employees from looters. Parsons, infamous for its sloppy work in Iraq, was brought in for a major bridge construction project in Mississippi. Floor, Shaw, Bechtel, CH2M Hill, all top contractors in Iraq, were hired by the government to provide mobile homes to evacuees just 10 days after the levees broke. Their contracts ended up totaling $3.4 billion. No open bidding required. As many remarked at the time, within days of the storm, it was as if Baghdad's green zone had lifted from its perch on the Tigris and landed on the bayou. The parallels were undeniable. To spearhead its Katrina operation, Shaw hired the former head of the U.S. Army's Iraq Reconstruction Office. Floor sent its senior project manager from Iraq to the flood zone. Our rebuilding work in Iraq is slowing down, and this has made some people available to respond to our work in Louisiana, a company representative explained. Goes on and on and on. Other things were pretty green zone too. On contracts valued at $8.75 billion, congressional investigators found significant overcharges, wasteful spending, or mismanagement. The fact that exactly the same errors as those made in Iraq were instantly repeated in New Orleans should put to rest the claim that Iraq's occupation was merely a string of mishaps and mistakes marked by incompetence and lack of oversight. When the same mistakes are repeated over and over again, it's time to consider the possibility that they are not mistakes at all. In New Orleans, as in Iraq, no opportunity for profit was left untapped. Kenyon, a division of the mega funeral conglomerate Service Corporation International, a major Bush campaign donor, was hired to retrieve the dead bodies from homes and streets. The work was extraordinarily slow, and bodies were left in the broiling sun for days. Emergency workers and local volunteer morticians were forbidden to step in and help because handling the bodies impinged on Kenyon's commercial territory. The company charged the state, on average, $12,500 per body. And it has since been accused of failing to properly label many bodies. For almost a year after the flood, decayed corpses were still being discovered in attics. Okay, so there's disaster capitalism at work. The fine folks at Kenyon, the mega funeral conglomerate Service Corporation International, it boggles the mind. Charging the government $12,000 per body to clean up people who died in Katrina, and other people, you weren't allowed to touch a body because it impinged on their contract, right? It goes on and on. I could keep going, but the point is the shock doctrine, Naomi Klein. Okay, she makes the point, climate change. These disasters might perpetuate themselves. She doesn't see some grand conspiracy. But this book is 10 years old. And nowadays, a lot more people are aware of the fact that humans are playing God with the weather, just like they're playing God with the food supply, just like they're playing God with people's lives, with drone warfare, just like they're playing God with the financial system, creating something out of nothing, fiat currency. So the New York Times, very tellingly on the cover there, the mayor, his decision not to order evacuations is assailed. Evoking Katrina, images from Harvey have led to comparisons to the 2005 hurricane. And the economy. Short-term effects in Texas may be severe, but rebuilding could be a boon. Okay, of course it's going to be a boon. We live in the era of disaster capitalism. My old boss, Mike Rupert, always used to say, it's more profitable to destroy things these days than it is to build them. Just like war. Every time another bomb drops, somebody's making a lot of money. Every time somebody gets diagnosed with cancer, somebody's making a lot of money. Every time this crazy-ass hurricane, for some reason, stalls out in one spot and dumps 50 inches of rain over Corpus Christi, Texas, Houston, somebody's going to make a lot of money. And it's sad. So that's about enough Harvey. Can't stress it enough. If you don't know about the history of weather modification, check my links over here. We've got a website now, the Wake Up News website, and over here I've got my sources for my news today. I get a lot of these from a guy named Rice Farmer, who I met working with Mike, also Jen O'Arkin, another friend who I met working with Mike. They are incredible researchers. And so on our new Wake Up News website, we're posting all that stuff. Let's get into the use here. Again, I might not cover everything. I might not have time to. I might forget to cover something. But check those links. I'll also post this video there once it posts to YouTube. And everybody's chiming in with some great comments. Thank you so much. Thank you for the shares. Thank you for the likes. Daniel Reichert chiming in with a great point. It's easier to destroy than it is to create. Isn't that the truth, Daniel? Whether we're talking about, you can take somebody's life in a split second with a bullet. But to give somebody like a nurturing, sheltering, happy home takes years and years and years of effort. You can spend years and years developing trust, building a relationship, and then one action can destroy it all, right? So you're absolutely right. It is a lot easier to destroy than it is to create. Getting into it here, we're looking at the Jackson Hole Daily for Wednesday, August 30th, 2017. This might not be the most interesting show on the internet, but what we do, we break down the mainstream media. We take a good critical look at it, and we read between the lines, flip the script, so to speak, on the mainstream. I'm not trying to rag on this paper too hard. It's my local paper. They do a decent job, but they could do a lot better, notably by telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But, of course, it's just a lot of regurgitations from the AP, the Associated Prostitutes, about 70% advertising, 20% fluff, 10% news, a colossal waste of paper. Just like our friends at the New York Times, it's a joke. It's an outrage. In an era of climate change, all this stuff, a colossal waste of paper to print these out every day. Let's get into the truth here. Okay, Medicare funding down. The federal government previously reimbursed St. John's Medical Center, that's our local hospital, for every Medicare patient. Changes to the payment formula will leave the hospital with a loss of $1.3 million this year and could hurt other rural hospitals unless Congress acts fast. Okay? It's important to note, now that everybody is locked into Obamacare, everybody's locked into the Affordable Care Act, old Trumpo didn't get his Trump care, but he has the power of the pen to defund Medicare, defund Obamacare. And what happens now that everybody's lumped into the system, now that everybody's forced to buy health care or they're going to get fined, the premiums go up. Go figure. Obamacare premiums up for silver plans, which are the most common plans, up 18% in 2017, up 12% in 2017. That is a rather large amount of inflation annually. You get, 12 to 18% annual inflation on healthcare costs. They were already through the roof expensive. Now, not surprisingly, going up. Those statistics from Time Magazine. Here in Wyoming, the Jacksonville News and Guide recently reported that Blue Cross Blue Shield, the only provider for the silver plans, the only provider under Obamacare for the sparsely populated state of Wyoming, is increasing premiums by a whopping 48% this year. Makes you wonder. Travis Gill, moving back to Harvey. Does NASA satellite website show evidence of geoengineering of Hurricane Harvey? Yes, Travis. Thanks for asking. A couple people to check out. Geoengineering Watch, Dane Wigington's been doing some great work on this, and Patrick Roddy from StopSprayingUs.sf or Stop Spraying Us San Francisco. Check out Patrick Roddy's stuff. One of his articles actually got picked up by Anonymous, a non-news network, and it had like 4,000 shares. Then Anon inexplicably pulled the story. Very interesting. So check out Patrick. Hear me? Okay, I'm back. Hopefully I didn't lose you for too long. I don't know. I got a hardwired connection and it's telling me I don't have enough service. But yeah, check out all these people. Amanda Danielle, aka Madison Star Moon. A lot of people have done more research on it than me. But Patrick Roddy would be a good one to check. Jim Lee, Dane Wigington, all working hard. Okay. We got fluff. We got local news. In the opinion section, okay, David Brooks pushing race identity politics. He's calling the GOP racist. It's just a distraction. Trump's pardon of our PIO, I don't know how to say his name, is fitting on a political level. Another distraction. Here we actually have a pretty good political cartoon. I wrote in there, drowning distractions. Okay, we got the, this disaster can be a great unifying event. We got the guy in the boat with some black people, some white people, some old people, some young people, and he's saving them. And underneath all the drama, right? So the narrative goes on. A couple weeks ago we were supposed to be all worried about white supremacists. The KKK is going to come knocking on your door. And, Antifa, all that BS. Now it's forgotten. Now, moving on to the next story. Of course, a natural disaster, you have to wonder how natural those really are in the era of weather modification and geoengineering. Okay, I can't stress it enough. The technology exists to prevent flooding. The technology exists to cause flooding. The U.S. government has been fiddle-fucking around with it for a very long time. So more fluffity stuff. No pot at Burning Man, you guys. Sorry, if you're going to Burning Man, if you're already there, you're not allowed to bring your pot because it's on BLM land. Nevada made weed legal, but it's federal land. So, it's a fine line there. Sounds like you're going to be all right, though. If you want to go to Burning Man and do your drugs, have fun with that. Just remember, sitting out in the desert, tripping your face off is not really going to solve the world's problems. Okay? Hurricane Harvey, the heaviest rain in history. The rains at Cedar Bayou near Mont Belvieu, Texas, reached 51.88 inches as of 3:30 p.m. Central Time yesterday. That's a record for both Texas and the continental U.S. The previous record was 48 inches, set in 1978 in Medina, Texas, by Tropical Storm Amelia. The weather station southeast of Houston reported 49.32 inches of rain. Okay, Trump shows up down there to wave a flag, tell everybody it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay for Trump and the disaster capitalists because they're going to make a shitload of profit. Off of this event. You know, it's funny. Let me see if I can actually find one other little segment of the book here that's very telling. Here we go. So we all know Hurricane Katrina, really, you know, arguably the levees were blown up and intentionally flooding poor, largely black segments of the city. In Houston, I haven't studied it enough to know completely, but I'm sure we're going to learn plenty about it in the upcoming days and weeks. But the long story short, the poor people in Houston, the poor people in New Orleans bore the brunt of the situation. And the attacks on the disadvantaged carried out in the name of reconstruction and relief did not stop there. Talking about the contracts being misappropriated. In order to offset the tens of billions of dollars going to private companies in contracts and tax breaks, in November 2005, the Republican-controlled Congress announced that it needed to cut $40 billion from the federal budget. Among the programs that were slashed were student loans, Medicaid, and food stamps. In other words, the poorest citizens in the country subsidized the contractor bonanza twice. First, when Katrina relief morphed into unregulated corporate handouts, providing neither decent jobs nor functional public services. And second, when the few programs that directly assist the unemployed and working poor nationwide were gutted to pay those bloated bills. So, Naomi Klein kicking ass back there 10 years ago with the writing in that book. Okay, huge shitstorming on Harvey. If you want more on that, again, check my sources there in the link in the description there. War in the South Sudan. But don't worry, you know, a huge natural disaster not going to affect the stock market. Why? Because the stock market's rigged. We're on to business. Stock market's going to crash real quick. Susan Sibrin says, I'm bored to hell with your drawl. Well, Susan, the beautiful thing about the internet is that there are literally thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, millions of people out there live streaming right now. So go do your thing, Susan. Thanks for tuning in. But moving along, North Korea's latest missile launch jolted the U.S. stock market Tuesday, but major indexes pulled back from those early losses and mostly finished higher as the weakening dollar gave technology and industrial companies a boost. Investors bought bonds, traditionally considered safe assets, after Pyongyang fired a mid-range ballistic missile that crossed over northern Japan and fell into the Pacific. It seemed designed to show that North Korea can back up a threat to target the U.S. territory of Guam. Energy and insurance companies continue to feel the effects of Tropical Storm Harvey, which is dumping record amounts of rain on the Gulf Coast. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 134 points when the market opened, but then, because it's rigged, it bounced back up. Can't stress that enough, okay? That's why I was up there. That's why I got such a crush on Janet Yellen. I'm calling her every day, trying to find out when she's going to stop printing money. Janet, baby, when are you going to stop printing? When are you going to stop buying Uncle Sam's bonds and funding deficit spending, right? When are you going to stop propping up the big banks so they can control all of the real estate in this country? When are you going to crash the economy again, Janet? We all want to know so we can position ourselves accordingly, right? It's kind of insider trading when you and all your friends, you know, when you and all your bankster buddies know what's going to happen in advance because you control the interest rates and you control, you know, the amount of money you print every month. You basically have insider knowledge on the market. It's rigged, Janet. I'm on to you, baby. We're done, right? Not really that much in love with Janet Yellen anymore since the security wouldn't let me anywhere near her. Let's see, moving along. U.S. home prices climbed higher in June with gains that are eclipsing income growth, creating affordability pressures for would-be buyers. The Standard & Poor's CoreLogic Case-Shiller 20-Home City Price Index rose 5.7% in June, according to the report Tuesday. The price increases are different from the bubble period. Oh, really? When subprime mortgages led to a housing bust, there is a shortage of properties for sale, causing the prices to steadily rise at more than double the pace of average hourly earnings. Buyers are also relying on low mortgage rates to ease the affordability pressures. Cheaper borrowing costs have kept buyer demand strong despite the price increases. Prices are likely to keep rising, said David Blitzer, chairman of the index committee at the S&P Dow Jones Indices. Given current economic conditions and the tight housing market, an immediate reversal in home price trends appears unlikely, Blitzer said. Well, we've heard that sort of shit before. It's important to note, I just checked today, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis on their FRED website, right now in the United States of America, there are 17,557,000 empty housing units. That means these are built houses, built apartments, built condos with nobody living in them. Okay? Who owns all these? Well, some rich people own some of them, but it's mostly banks that own them. Right? A lot of these things that got foreclosed, they're bank owned now. So there's 17,500,000 empty houses in the country. At the same time, the price of housing keeps going up. The price of rent keeps going up. It's inflation, right? It's a rigged system. The same people, the same central banksters who are gifting money to the government so they can continue the endless war of terror, they can continue deficit spending us into oblivion, are also propping up these big banks that hold all these toxic mortgages from the subprime crisis 2008, 2009. So who owns all these houses? The banks do. Large investments, large corporations do. And the reason that housing prices are skyrocketing is not because, it's because it's rigged. It's not because real people who actually work real jobs are actually like, wow, I've been making $12 an hour working my shit job. Now I'm going to drop $350,000 on a fucking house that would have cost $250,000 5 years ago because I just got money to burn, right? The average person in the United States just squeaking by. Can't stress it enough. I'm going to go back to horoscopes at the end of the video. Many Harvey victims uninsured, more Harvey coverage, flood insurance, right? Flood insurance, very, very expensive. Most people don't have it. A lot of people wish they did right now. Moving along. Domino's Pizza, experimenting with the self-driving delivery car. Okay, we've seen this coming on the horizon for a long time. New York Times talking about Uber, which is basically a taxi service, but it's a huge deal when they pick some guy to run Uber, right? Uber a taxi service, but they're going to go into the self-driving car too. What's going to happen to all the Uber drivers when there's self-driving cars, right? Rich people who can afford to spend $150,000 on a self-driving car can start an Uber and just have the car drive itself around. Whereas the average person who works for a living probably doesn't have $120,000, $150,000 laying around to invest into a self-driving Uber car. But same sort of shit with Domino's, the self-driving delivery pizza car. What happens? You order a pizza, it sends you a text message with a secret code. When it arrives at your house, it notifies you. You walk outside, you put in the code, and then the back window opens and the robot gives you your pizza. So gone will be the days of the stony pizza delivery guy coming by. Sad to see. Sad to see. But, these are the technologies We're always taught to be afraid of artificial intelligence. We're taught to be afraid of the Terminator, the machines rising up and taking out humanity. But at this stage of the game, it seems like we need to be more concerned about losing our livelihoods to automation, right? More jobs go to the wayside every year. Oh, fluffity duff in the sports, no funny comics, TV listings, advertising. And then we're into the classifieds. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages of shitty jobs. For the most part, shitty jobs. I define a shitty job as something that pays you less than a living wage, right? Jackson Hole, wealthiest county per capita in the United States. If you're not making at least $20 an hour, you're screwed, because there's no place to live unless you want to spend $1,000 a month for a bedroom. That's our Jackson Hole Daily for the day. Back to horoscopes. I think I'm going to do horoscopes at the end from now on, so people can sign out if they're not interested. I'm no big astrologer, but I do read my horoscope because it's in the paper, and I read the whole paper every day to try to inform you, try to see what the mainstream's doing, flip it around on them. If you want your scope read, let me know. I spend about 4 or 5 hours putting together these videos before I go live. So it's like a 6-hour process to put one of these together. There's all your comments. It's funny. It's so frustrating. The comments don't show. You have to physically scroll down to get some of them to pop. We're looking at Aries, Cancer, Libra, Pisces, Leo. Okay, here we go. Excuse me. I'm going to read mine first. I'm having a 5-star day, being the Taurus that I am. One-on-one relating could revolve around a difficult topic or financial restriction. Either way, you break precedent and move through a problem. Listen to news more openly and see where you can find a new path. A partner always appears to be more open to you, which might not always be true. Tonight, relate on a 1-to-1 level. Oh, there we go. Hopefully I get to do some relating tonight. Brian Peterson, we're getting into Aries. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, Brian, you've been here since the very beginning of the broadcast today. 4-star day for you, Mr. Peterson. You become more entrenched in a problem because of your attitude and unwillingness to change your position. Your creativity emerges later in the day. An unusual resolution appears, whether you take a risk or not. You have the energy and determination to cruise through a hassle. Tonight, Brian, relax to a good movie. Thomas Foco, looking for Cancer, please. Such a polite man. Both of you. Thank you, gentlemen. 4-star day for you, Thomas. Deal directly with a child or loved one you care about. Visualize more of what you want and try to explain those desires to the person who could help you make them so. Remain assertive regarding a financial issue. Do not push past established boundaries to achieve your long-term desires. Tonight, get as much done as possible before calling it a day. Shannon Wendricks, looking for Libra. I guess we're going to do that for you, Shannon. 4-star day. Be forthright about an issue rather than close down. Others try to open up a conversation, and you respond accordingly once you think about what is happening. A friend might feel a lot stronger about a key issue than you do. You cannot feign agreement, and it would be best not to try. Tonight, where the crowds are. Daniel Reichert, looking for Pisces. Here we go, brother. Thanks for tuning in, as always, again. Daniel, regular listener, follower here. Thank you. And Thomas, Susie, we did Cancer already for Thomas. Hopefully you caught it. Pisces, 4-star day for you, Mr. Reichert. Be more forthright in dealing with an important business matter. Honor the feelings of a boss or older relative, especially if this person has more experience with the issue at hand. Your energy surges and might be the source of a disagreement, which normally would not occur. Tonight, off to the gym to work through your stress. Leo for Maxine 90s. Hello, Maxine. Thanks for tuning in today. 4-star day. Be direct about a key issue, Maxine. Your ability to remain disciplined and follow through on a less than comfortable decision allows you to come out ahead. You also have the ability to maintain your sunny personality at the same time, making whatever you do look easy. Tonight, letting off some steam. And Cancer, I think we did Cancer already for Thomas. So Susie, Cancer has been done. Aries, Sag. Okay, I did Cancer already. I did Taurus already. You're going to have to rewind to see those. Sorry, folks. Aries and Sag, and then we're done. 4-star day. Aries, you become more entrenched in a problem because of your attitude and unwillingness to change your position. Your creativity emerges later in the day. An unusual resolution appears, whether you take a risk or not. You have the energy and determination to cruise through a hassle. Tonight, relax to a good movie. And Tori Davis, we're looking at Sag for you. That's my last one, I believe. What else? Cancer. Man, there's a lot of comments here. Thank you all for tuning in. What do we got to read? Sag, 4-star. You could be moving with confidence and quickness while handling a problem. Understand what is happening between you and another person. You see a personal issue far differently from a friend or loved one. Discussions might be important here, but confrontation or arguments should be avoided. Tonight, in the limelight. So there we go. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you, Tori. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Joseph. All of you, thank you so much. We're shredding the mainstream. You know, horoscopes, they're fun to read, kind of like the newspaper. But at the same time, you can't base your whole life off your horoscope. Can't base your whole life off of what the mainstream media says. The mainstream media is designed to distract us. It's designed to divide us. It's designed to disempower us and deter us from making positive changes in ways that we can actually affect the world. Right? We got to take care of ourselves. We got to take care of our loved ones. You know, health and happiness should be first. They're kind of inextricably intertwined there. So if you spend all your time staring at the phone or in front of the computer, focused on all the bullshit that you can't change, you're not doing much. You know, yeah, you're raising awareness. You're doing good work in that regard. But at the same time, if it affects your happiness, if it affects your health, if it stresses you out, you got to find that balance, right? And you got to remember that the media, the mainstream media, is designed to make you feel like shit. It's designed to scare the shit out of you. It's called terrorism for a reason. Terrorism, the rule through fear and intimidation, right? The mainstream media spreads so much fear. Here, Wake Up Wyoming, we try to balance it with the proper attitude and the awareness that, you know, yeah, the world's pretty fucked up. There's all sorts of bad things happening, but it's been that way forever. And in a lot of ways, the world's better than it's ever been before. Now, granted, we're dealing with a depopulation agenda. We're dealing with geoengineering. We're dealing with people playing God. We're dealing with endless wars. We're dealing with financial fraud. But at the same time, I don't know. We're all here, and we have the capacity to change it to some extent if we work together. So thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for your likes. Thanks for your shares. Thanks for your subscriptions. Check out the new Wake Up News webpage. Again, I'm posting links. I'll post the video there. You know, the website kind of looks like shit, but we do this for free. You can make donations to me if you want to, but I'm not going to ask you for money. Kind of like bartending. I was a bartender for 10 years, then I quit because I knew I had a higher purpose, right? So don't forget to tip your bartenders if you go out to a bar, and, you know, maybe tip your tooth tenders too. Probably a good idea, because just like you, we eat food, we get sick, we drive cars. You know, I personally would rather have like some sort of Tesla tech flying machine, but in the world today, stuck in the fossil fuel driven economy, I still got to pay at the pump just like the rest of y'all. And, you know, the more awareness we raise, the better the world's going to be for us and our children. Okay? A lot of problems out there, but can't let it ruin your life. Got to stay active. Got to stay optimistic. And on that note, I'm signing off. Thank you all for tuning in. Like I said at the beginning, I was out climbing for a couple days. It was great to get out into the mountains and reconnect with nature. Get away from all the news. Get away from all the electro smog, the 5G that's being rolled out here. Real disturbing shit. Get away from the Wi-Fi, the smart meters, the cell towers, the 3G, the 4G, all this shit that seems to affect our health and happiness. So I can't encourage you enough get outside, have some fun. Turn off the Wi-Fi when you go to bed, and take care of your loved ones. So I'm out. Hopefully I'll be going live again tomorrow. If not, I'm headed down to Colorado for a couple of days to help out some friends down there. Pick up a truck that was loaned out at Standing Rock by one friend to another friend. I'm going to help them sell that. Also going to go climb the Diamond on Long's Peak in Rocky Mountain National Park. Pretty stoked about that. But I'll be keeping in touch, keeping informed, and trying to keep you all abreast with developments as I can. But, you know, like I said, I practice what I preach. I'm not going to sit in front of the computer all day, every day. You know, I'll try to keep up with the news, but there's so much going on in the news, it's impossible to keep up with all of it. But the things that really matter, like weather warfare, Hurricane Harvey clearly being manipulated, causing record rainfall in Texas, a boon for disaster capitalists, an utter disaster for average working Americans. These are the things that really matter. These are the issues that we really need to touch on. So, thank you so much. Finally, wordy man that I am, signing off. One love. Peace. Finish.